You know, over the course of the years of my lifetime, I have realized what my role in society is. I, Sean Fitzgerald, owner and content creator for the Actual Justice Warrior YouTube channel, which is now available on Spotify and Apple's podcasting platforms. Please subscribe, please give me a review, I really appreciate it. I'm trying to build out my brand on multi-platforms, really need your support and help and kindness, and I appreciate it. Have to set the record straight. I have to tell you guys what's what. I have to diagnose the situation. I have to point out the real problem while everybody else is distracted by the non-problem. And today we're going to do that with the Little Mermaid teaser that was released and is woke because, of course, it has the black lady and Hollywood is killing off yet another redhead. Whatever. We've all heard it before. Whatever. But before we get into that, we have a sponsor of today's video. The sponsor is Noble Gold, long-term sponsor and supporter of this channel, so listen to the read and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Central banks are increasing their gold reserves like no one's business due to the threat of an oncoming financial crisis. Billionaires like Ray Dalio and Goldman Sachs, giant firms like that, are also moving into these assets, and there's only one other time in history where we've seen these similar actions, and that was around 2007 to 2009 when gold went up by 56%, and of course we had the global financial crisis. Think about what that means. All the billionaires, all the governments, and all the giant financial firms are all using gold to protect their assets because they're worried about what's to come. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you on board? Well, luckily for you, if you want to think about diversifying your portfolio, hedging against the oncoming crisis, today's sponsor is noblegoldinvestments.com. Call them at 877-646-5347 to talk over your options. In just 5 minutes of your time, you will talk to an actual human expert that will walk you through the process of diversifying your portfolio. And if you put a qualifying IRA or 401k in line with Noble Gold Investments, you will be gifted an American Eagle 1/10 of an ounce gold coin. Again, the number is 877-646-5347, noblegoldinvestments.com. So Disney just dropped the Little Mermaid teaser trailer for the live-action reboot of The Little Mermaid. It's out, as we already knew before. Halle Berry, which is not to be confused with Holly Berry, even though her name is actually spelled kind of like Holly Berry, is the actress that is portraying Ariel. And of course, she's not white. And of course, we replaced another redhead with a black person, which seems to be a weird thing that Hollywood is into and kind of odd because it seems to be redhead specifically. And a lot of people have pointed out that this is woke, that they did this for diversity purposes, that they are brownwashing or blackwashing a traditionally white character. Whatever. We've all heard it before. We all understand it, and it's been broken down to us many different times. However, what I will say is that this teaser didn't show us anything that we already didn't know. We knew they were making a live-action version of this movie. We knew that this woman was cast as Ariel, so everybody's essentially making the same exact videos with the same exact points based on a teaser that honestly shows us next to nothing based on this movie. It's not even a full trailer, it's a teaser. On top of that, the actual criticisms of this movie have nothing to do with the fact that this woman has dark skin, because we already knew that, as I said before, but it does have to do with the fact that this trailer is ridiculously dark. This is a still from a random portion of the Little Mermaid animated movie. Do you see how bright it is? Do you see how all the colors are fully saturated? This looks darker and more desaturated than the Aquaman movie. And this is supposed to be a live-action version of this. But fundamentally, the real issue with all of these movies, the real problem, is what I just said right there. That this is supposed to be a live-action version of this. This is actually what's offensive. This is actually what bothers me. This is what should bother you. And we can talk about Disney trying to wokeify or diversify all their old properties, how they won't adapt actual stories that are based on minorities, which I believe the actual lesson from the movie Black Panther is that those would be more successful than these race swap stories, but in reality, it's actually annoying, it's actually offensive to see them try to do live action versions of animation. Animation is a beautiful art form. Animation is the art form that made Disney what it is. And the idea that we don't get any more two-dimensional animation and we're just aping and making worse versions of our previous animated movies, and that's what Disney is, and you guys go out and see it and it makes $1 billion each and every time, is pathetic. None of these movies are good. None of these movies are watchable. None of these straight one-to-one adaptations of a previous animated movie should be regarded with anything more than contempt. And yet, time and time again, you go out and see them. Time and time again, you buy into them. Time and time again, you give Disney's money. So we're talking about who was cast as Ariel, we're talking about race swapping, we're talking about all that stuff. But in reality, what we should be talking about is that this movie does not need to exist. The movie is actually made worse by the live action, not better, because things are animated for a reason. It actually aids in the telling of the story. A perfect example of this phenomenon being absolutely terrible is the movie Aladdin. Now, in Aladdin, they made sure to do the racially accurate or whatever casting for Agrabah, which is definitely not an imaginary place, and they had all of these characters cast in a way that they fit the show. Now, of course, Jafar had a very strong British accent in the movies, and I actually saw the guy who plays Jafar play Jafar in the Aladdin musical, and it was fantastic. And then they cast this young guy because they wanted to do a weird thing about how people are attracted to Jafar, which you're not supposed to be, and it actually hurt the character because Jafar was trying to marry Jasmine, and that was seen as far more creepy in the animated movie than it would have been in this movie. But whatever. They did the proper racial adaptation of Aladdin. They were very proud that they put some brown people on the screen, and then the movie was absolutely horrible in every possible way. First of all, Will Smith playing the genie, I will give them credit for using Will Smith, because any other actor without a giant ego like Will Smith would probably try to do a Robin Williams impersonation, but Will Smith has a giant ego, so he played Will Smith as he does in almost every movie. However, there is a problem with having Will Smith, because the reason why the genie works in the original Aladdin movie is because the genie is a side character. He kind of steals the show from the main action, but Will Smith doesn't play second fiddle to anybody. So if Aladdin's gonna have a romance, spoiler alert, Will Smith's genie has to have a romance. If Aladdin's gonna go on part of this adventure and do all this crazy stuff, spoiler alert, the genie's not going to be this magical MacGuffin in the movie that wisecracks or whatever. He needs to be the co-main character of the movie and needs to be co-equal to Aladdin, even though he functions way better as a side character that steals the show. But overall, what we see with these movies is that the animated versions of them are tight. They're to the point. There's almost no wasted time. They're beautiful in that regard. The animation aids in the telling of the story, because if they could have just made it live action back in the day, they would have just made it live action back in the day, but it works better because it's animated. Look at how pointy Jafar is. Everything about this man screams villain. Look at Aladdin. He's got the big eyes, the round face, the color scheme. All these things indicate to you people out there in the audience that this is the good guy. And the great thing about animation, the great thing about these amazing works of art, is they transcend all ages. Your children can watch this movie, the original Aladdin, and understand everything that's going on visually, but there's enough interesting story, there's enough compelling character to keep and hold the adults. One of the things that went wrong with Disney animation is that they went for goofy, awkward comedy and not really good characters, and this is why people in the 90s to the 2000s, when Disney started to fall off, after they stopped making movies like Little Mermaid, after they stopped making Lion King, etc., people started moving towards Pixar because Pixar captured that same feel. But this is just live action nonsense. This is just an adaptation, and honestly, the biggest crime in this adaptation is not the casting, because who cares about a live action version of Little Mermaid? It's the fact that this film exists, because implicit in these live action adaptations, or in the case of The Lion King, which was a photorealistic version of the animated movie that nobody asked for, is the idea that live action is somehow superior to animation. It's the idea that animation is some kind of a lower art form not deserving of respect, when in reality, like all mediums, animation can be used more effectively to tell a story than live action, specifically when we're referring to a story like The Little Mermaid. So yeah, the reason you should be disinterested in this movie, regardless of who's playing Ariel, is because it is backed by hubris. It is because it is backed by that intent to undermine an art form form that Disney is no longer interested in, and an art form that has unfortunately fallen out of favor in the United States of America and broadly in the Western world. The only people who seem to be interested in animation, traditional two-dimensional animation, is the Asian market, specifically the Japanese market, and I respect the hell out of them for it. And we've seen over and over again when people try to adapt anime for live action for American audiences, it comes out horrible each and every time. And the reason for that is because it's animated for a reason. It's better to tell the story. It works better with the narrative. It should not be adapted into live action. Stop doing it in any case, not just in anime, but in the Disney tradition. Now, before you guys go out and say that this version of Cinderella or this version of Snow White is in the live action and it actually works, understand what we're talking about here. We're not talking about any version of Cinderella, any version of Snow White. These are tales that are older than Disney that have been adapted over and over again. What we're talking about is adapting Disney's version of Cinderella, Disney's version of Beauty and the Beast, Disney's version of Snow White, Disney's version of Aladdin, which is Disney's version of Arabian Nights. We don't want to see these one-to-one, nearly shot-for-shot, but worse remakes in the live action, and we should reject them on their face. This trend has been going on for far too long, so pardon me for not caring about Halle Berry playing this character, because in reality, the real issue is that this movie even exists. The adaptation itself is disrespectful to the art form. The adaptation itself is a problem, and we need to stand against it. And if you argue that you like that Aladdin movie, that live action Aladdin movie, or that photorealistic Lion King movie, get out of town. I don't like you. I'm not in favor of it. You're not my friend. Unsubscribe from the channel. Block yourself from my Twitter. We're not cool. Yes, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it is serious, and I am 100% correct on this issue. If you want to stop woke recasting of characters like Ariel, if you want to stop woke recasting of the live action reboots of whatever Disney movie, then you need to stop showing up to the theater for any of these live action versions of any of these Disney movies. Stop supporting them with your wallet, because we know as they reboot, as they rehash, they are going to recast. But in reality, what we should actually be against is the reboot, the rehash, and this denial of the reality that animation is better suited for these stories than actually doing it in live action and doing computer effects, whatever Zack Snyder version of Aquaman with this girl in it. No, it doesn't work. We don't want it. You gotta get on board, join my team, sign my newsletter, go sign my petition, donate to my GoFundMe as I sue Disney because they can't make live action versions of their movies anymore. It's not respectful. You know what I mean. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. I just wanted to give you a rant on this trend of Disney live action reboots, one-to-one remakes of their animated movies, and how much I hate it. And I wanted to direct your ire at the right place, because a lot of people on the internet.com are just talking about this actress being cast in this role, when in reality, the problem is far deeper than that. If you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description box of this video. This has been me discussing the Little Mermaid teaser, whatever. Till next time.